Peace, Love, Liberty Radio version 4.0. Prepare for launch.
OTC is go.
Packetbus is go.
PTC is go.
LPS is go.
Houston flight is go.
Molotov.
STM is go.
Safety-Com is go.
SPE is go.
LRD is go. SRO is go.
CDI is go.
Launch Director, NTD, our launch team is ready to proceed at this time.
99, proceeded, 3, 2, 1, ignition. Right away, Houston.
Consequences so severe, so pull your trigger quickly, dear. Our patriots are acting up, let's punish them with fear.
Hey, welcome to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. And if you're a member of the Fans program, you're hearing this a day early because I'm doing something that I haven't done before. I'm recording an episode of Peace, Love, Liberty Radio the day before it winds up getting released. That's because I'm traveling tomorrow. Or if you're not a member of the Fans program, today, Wednesday, the 25th of May, I'm traveling down to Orlando. So this is actually being recorded on Tuesday. So, yeah, it's weird. So I'm going to act as though it's Wednesday because I'm doing the Ask Me Anything. And that's because every Wednesday I answer your questions. And I wanted to make sure that I did this episode this week just because with travel next Monday, I should be able to wind up getting a show recorded, but you never know if things are going to wind up being delayed as far as travel. And if I don't get one done, I didn't want to wait a week and a half between episodes. So, there's the show today. And then, at the very least, the next show will be next Wednesday. Again, another Ask Me Anything. Hopefully, there will be a show on Monday. No show this Friday because, well, as I said, I'm traveling down to Orlando for the Libertarian Party's National Convention. And I'll be in convention pretty much all day Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then I'm traveling back to New Hampshire Monday morning. So let me, again, and I just noticed that I did it again. I talked about this at the beginning of the show on Monday, where I'll introduce the show, but I don't introduce myself. Who am I? I am your host, Darryl W. Perry, the Liberty Penguin, the news hound, the persistent news hound, a couple other things that Roger Paxton had nicknamed me that I don't recall and don't have written down in front of me. But listen to the show on Monday. And again, send me an email, thoughts@fppradio.com. Let me know what nicknames you think I should give myself to introduce myself, because that's something that, you know, most good radio hosts do is they introduce themselves, and a lot of times they give themselves nicknames. So, let me jump into the Ask Me Anything. And I'm doing it a little different than I normally do. I only had one question actually submitted through the proper Ask Me Anything channel. But because I did a live Reddit Ask Me Anything this past Saturday, I'm pulling some questions from there. So I will have several questions to answer. So allow me to begin with the question that was submitted by Roger Paxton, who is an executive producer of this show and an advertiser, by the way. So, Roger, thank you very much for all you do to help me. So, Roger's question is, as a voluntarist, how do you reconcile running for public office, since so many voluntarists apparently believe that no true voluntarist can even vote, much less run for office? And this is based on the premise that if you vote, you consent to the system. Because apparently, if one person stays home, then somehow the entire system just doesn't function, and that's absolutely not true. There have been elections where nobody showed up to vote, not even the candidates themselves. Did that government go away? No. No, it did not, because there are processes in place to break a tie vote, and a 0-0 tie is still a tie nonetheless, and, well, they can break a tie that way, or in the case of, there was a story, I think about a year ago, might have been 2 years ago, out of New Mexico, to where they were electing 3 members of a, 6 or 9 member, I think it might have been a 9-member school board, they were electing 3 members because staggered terms. Nobody showed up to vote, not even the 3 candidates themselves. And so the remaining school board members appointed the 3 candidates to fill the vacancies left on the board. So you had that thing where nobody showed up to vote. The school budget didn't become zero. The school board did not dissolve. They wound up saying, nope, we're still the school board, and here's who's taking these seats, and here's what our budget is, and screw you, basically. And it also is based on the premise that consent cannot be withdrawn, which is absolutely absurd, and I think everybody would admit consent can be withdrawn. If 2 people enter into a contract, and the claim is that by voting you're somehow entering into the social contract, it's based on you can't change your mind. And every contract I've ever signed, there has been an exit clause. Here are ways that you can leave this contract. If you change your mind at some point, here's ways that you can leave this contract. And again, if we are going based on if you vote, you consent, well, you can change your mind, you can unconsent. But even if you vote and it's claimed that you're consenting, then really isn't only the people that voted for the winners those who actually consented? My vote for none of the above. How is that consent for anything Barack Obama did? And I've actually had people tell me that it is my fault. Had I not voted for Charles J., the Boston Tea Party's presidential nominee in 2008, had I not voted for Charles J., Barack Obama never would have gotten elected and never would have drone-bombed children in Yemen, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Somalia, Libya, Iraq, Syria, and a couple other. I'm sure I'm forgetting a couple other countries. So it's my fault for writing in the name Charles J. on my ballot in 2008. Everything Barack Obama has done is my fault because I cast a vote, not even for Barack Obama. But this is just the absolute absurdity of the claim that you can't vote. Well, it's a way to express dissent. That's how I see it. It's one of the few ways that you actually are allowed to express your dissent. If you go try and have a protest somewhere, nope, you need a permit. You have to go ask the government for permission to say, I'm not happy with the government. You can petition for redress of grievance, but the courts have ruled that, well, they're not obligated to respond to your petition. Really, the only way to express your dissent is to use their system against themselves. And that's why I'm running. I'll talk about that in just a moment.
Hey, this is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends radio show. I've been working with computer programmer Derek Slopey to create Fiend Phone. I'm using Fiend Phone right now to talk with and record one of my co-hosts in real time. Take it, Davi.
Hey, this is Davi Barker, and I'm 1,000 miles away from Michael, but we sound like we're in the same room.
We sure do, Davi. So, Davi, please tell the nice people more about Fiend Phone.
Fiend Phone is free, open-source software that opens up a global world of possibilities for collaborative, high-quality remote voice media production, and I'm digging it.
People can try the Windows beta version of Fiend Phone right now at fiendphone.com. But we're also raising money to vastly improve Fiend Phone and vastly improve independent talk media worldwide.
So go to fiendphone.com to help out. Who will build the audio roads? We will, with your help.
That's fiendphone.com. FEENPHONE.com. Foxtrot, Echo, November, phone.com.
Fiend Phone. I never knew remote audio could be this good.
This is Paige Peterson from Made Safe, and you're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio with Darryl W. Perry.
I'm kind of fired up and riled up, and, well, I'll explain the whole thing of voluntarists running for office. But first, I want to tell you about a voluntarist that will sell you stuff if you give him money. That's voluntary interaction, right? You give this man some money, or preferably some Bitcoin. He will give you some gold or silver. The man is Tim Fry. The company is Roberts & Roberts Brokerage. And since 1977, Roberts & Roberts Brokerage has been a trusted source for buying and selling precious metals like gold and silver. They take Bitcoin for precious metal purchases and have permanently removed the minimum purchase amount for all orders paid in the digital currency. Call Robertson Roberts Brokerage today for knowledgeable advice on buying and selling precious metals and a forward-thinking approach to new technologies. 800-874-9760 or visit them online at rrbi.co. That's rrbi.co. So let me delve into the other part of this question about voluntarists running for public office. And that's actually the question was, how do you reconcile as a voluntarist running for public office? Because so many voluntarists believe that no true voluntarist can even vote. So I touched on the fallacy that a voluntarist cannot vote, or if you're a voluntarist and you believe that human interaction should be voluntary, it is perfectly acceptable to take a ballot and write in none of the above for a political candidate. Or if there's a candidate saying, I will abolish this office if elected, perfectly acceptable to vote for that candidate, because then you're voting in self-defense. It's akin to you're running through Central Park. Don't know why you would be doing that, because it's the joggers that always find the bodies, and they're kind of sketchy people. But you're running through Central Park, and some guy jumps out of the bushes and says, give me all your money. And you say, how about no? Is that, somehow consenting to being mugged because you verbalized, I don't want you to mug me? No, it's not. Now, how can a voluntarist run for political office? Well, quite simply, there are procedures in a lot of states to where if nobody files for office, they will just have a blank ballot and everybody gets to write in the name of the candidate that they want. Somebody still gets elected. There are some states to where they don't put out a ballot if there's only one candidate or no candidate. Or I'm not really sure. There might be some states to where if nobody files, they'll just have the write-in line, even if they would otherwise not put that office on the ballot if there was only one candidate. But again, they're going to spend the money to print the ballots, so you might as well take the ballot because they can't reuse it. Take the ballot and write in none of the above. Vote against raising taxes because, again, it's perfectly acceptable to vote in self-defense. And a lot of people that will say, well, Spooner said blah, 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 so therefore you can't vote. Spooner also talked about voting in self-defense. He talked about the whole concept of consent, and he said that really the only people who can claim to have consented to anything are the people that vote for the winning candidates. But again, you can change your mind. You can withdraw consent. And courts have consistently recognized the rights of people to withdraw consent. Even during the middle of an intimate act, you can withdraw consent. So if you can withdraw consent from the middle of an intimate act, most definitely you can withdraw your consent to be governed. And I, as a voluntarist, believe that every human being should have the right to decide for themselves if and or how they're governed. I'm running for office on a platform of, if elected, I will do everything I can to eliminate the federal government because I believe that you are smart enough to decide for yourself if and or how you're governed. So I'm using the system to promote the ideas of liberty. And I think it's perfectly acceptable to use their system against themselves. Now, I'm not taking their money. And when I say I'm not taking their money, not only am I not taking the public funding thing that if you raise certain amounts of money you qualify for, but I'm not even taking Federal Reserve notes for campaign contributions. That's how serious I am about let's get rid of the Federal Reserve. Let's go to these private currencies. Let's use gold and silver. Let's use Bitcoin. Let's use things that are not legal tender. And people are starting to pay attention to the message, and people are realizing that, hey, maybe we need to, change some stuff and have more freedom. So I feel that I have beaten that dead horse just a little too much. So now let me jump into the next question. Also, kind of related to elections. So if you're one of the people that's like, absolutely never run for any office ever, well, this next question might annoy you just a little bit too. The question, and again, these next questions came from Reddit on Saturday during that live Ask Me Anything that I did, where I answered questions for about 12 hours on Saturday. Question is, have you considered running for a seat in the New Hampshire legislature or even for governor? The Free State Project could stand to gain a lot of ground with radical libertarian leadership. And yes, I have thought about running for a seat in the New Hampshire state legislature. I attempted to run for a legislative seat 2 years ago, but was unable to meet the very arduous, very difficult ballot access hurdle for running for state rep in New Hampshire. So I was not on the ballot. I did a write-in campaign, and I went in and I counted up the number of write-ins that I got. I forget what it was, somewhere around a dozen. And, it's not great. But again, I didn't really do a lot of campaigning other than like putting up some signs. There may have been a letter to the editor. I don't even remember if they ran that thing because I wasn't actually on the ballot. But yes, I will probably run for state rep again in either 2018 or 2020. I haven't decided yet when, but definitely I will get involved. But I'm also doing a lot of lobbying, not as a paid lobbyist. So, like a lot of people, when they hear the term lobbying, they think, oh, so you're one of those high-paid falutin people that, buys off politicians. No, not that kind of lobbying. So I actually am kind of an unelected state rep, and I'll explain what I mean. So for the last 2 years, I have made a point of attending as many legislative hearings for the Election Law Committee as possible. I have, as just a regular person that is not being paid to go to Concord, I have a better attendance record in the Election Law Committee than half of the people that are elected members of that committee. State reps who are being paid to be there, I've got a better attendance record than half of them. So I intend to finish this thought in just a moment here on Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. When her plush and comfy life suddenly and unexpectedly fell apart, Brooke and her dog Cloud set out to defy the odds. If this is a man's world, as they say, living on the streets is no place for a young woman. One day she awoke in the redwood forest and realized she had become a hobo, and would ultimately come to know exactly what it means to survive. How to Be a Hobo by Brooke Willett is available from Amazon.com and all major bookstores. In 2115 New England, there are no borders, no states, and no regulations, yet never has a more peaceful and prosperous place existed. But Mr. Drake's security company has seen better days. Faced with the prospect of waning power, Mr. Drake intends to replace the anarchy of New England with a government. But at what cost? Will anybody care? And can anyone stop him? Anarchy in New England by Joe Jarvis is available from Amazon.com and all major bookstores.
You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio with Darryl W. Perry, online at fppradio.com.
So let me finish my thought here. Speaking of the things that I do, as far as, like why I haven't decided when I'll run for state rep. So I'm doing this sort of citizen lobby sort of thing to where I attend as many hearings of the Election Law Committee as possible. And again, as just a regular person taking time off of work, I have a better attendance record to the Election Law Committee than about half of the state reps that are elected to serve on that committee. So what I'm doing by attending all of these hearings is I'm making myself basically an expert on election law in the eyes of the state reps on that committee. They see me in the hallways and they ask me questions. I've had state reps on that committee ask me questions about other things because they think that, well, hey, Darryl, will this bill somehow affect the voting rights of people? Will this bill somehow affect this? There have been bills that have come through that had I not been there, they would not have realized some of the horrible ramifications of what they were going to implement. There have been other bills where I showed up and I was like, hey, well, technically, you guys need to eliminate this comma and change this word to this to actually do what you're saying you want to. And here's a way that you could improve this. So nothing super huge or major, but there was a bill that went through this year about the notification requirements of some meetings of the supervisors of the checklist. And I was there and I said, well, technically there's like 3 different bills that have been introduced here. So if we take this part of this bill and this part of this bill and this part of this third bill and put these together, and they've actually done some of the stuff because I'm there. They know that I am smart enough about the stuff because, like, I read legislation as a hobby. That's just kind of how weird I am. And I'm very heavily involved with the New Hampshire Liberty Alliance. And I'm one of the top bill reviewers, meaning that I read a bunch of legislation and then I fill out a questionnaire about the bills to help determine whether or not the bill is pro-liberty or anti-liberty. And then the New Hampshire Liberty Alliance gives state reps recommendations of here's how we think you should vote on these bills that are coming before you this week. And then at the end of the year, the New Hampshire Liberty Alliance rates the state reps based on how they voted on things in the past session. So I'm heavily involved with that, and I'm thinking of getting more involved with the NHLA, and that might, determine when or if I run for the New Hampshire legislature again in the future. But definitely I do want to see libertarians elected as members of the Libertarian Party in the New Hampshire legislature within the next decade. That is one of my goals. The next question: if you attended a nationally televised debate with Donald Trump and Hillary, communicating via Skype from a posh prison cell, that's saying that Hillary would be communicating via Skype, not me, how would you, being me, Darryl, how would you, Darryl, answer the question, who would build/fund the roads in front of the entire nation? Note, I hate this question as much as any other voluntarist, but it will come up. And here's the unique thing about who will build the roads, is the roads, for the most part, they're already built. So if we do wind up having libertarians in all of these elected offices and they decide, you know what, we're not using stolen money to pay for the roads anymore, that doesn't mean that some crew goes out the next day and starts tearing up the roads. It doesn't mean that the roads just suddenly disappear. Poof, they're gone. No. The roads will still exist, and they would, still have all the potholes that currently exist with the government-funded roads. And here's the unique thing about roads. Most people don't realize, in a lot of cases, probably the vast majority of cases, it's not actually the State Department of Transportation that paves the roads. It's the State Department of Transportation contracting a private company to come in and do the road work. So the whole thing of who would build the roads, that would not change. Who funds the roads, that would. And there's these things called businesses. And they thrive on having these other groups of people called customers show up to their business and buy things. It's called commerce. So the businesses would be incentivized to make sure that the customers have a way to get to the businesses. And what better way to get to a business than to drive on this flat surface called a road? And so the businesses, they would be incentivized to make sure that these flat surfaces existed. There would be gas stations that sell what? Yes, gas that is used by what? Cars, so that people would be able to get to other businesses and thus using more gas, thus being able to have to, purchase more gas. So businesses and gas stations technically are businesses. Business isn't just Walmart and your grocer. So, businesses would be incentivized to make sure that people are able to get to and fro. And then there's also the thing of, for longer trips, absent government involvement, people would be able to have flying cars. And yes, I realize flying cars wouldn't be useful for, say, a trip to the grocery store a couple miles down the road. But again, things would wind up being a lot better absent government coercion, because forcing people to do things is wrong. If your ideas are so great, then people should just accept them, because they want to. The whole concept of voluntary human interaction, that you don't get to force people to do things that you think are right just because you think they're right and you think somebody else is making a bad decision. making bad decisions is part of being free. Well, what's the quote about I would rather be free to make all the wrong decisions than be a slave and never have that opportunity? Something along those lines. I forget the exact wording. But, hey, we're coming up. Got the closing moments here momentarily. Got a couple more questions that hopefully I'll get into. Stay tuned. This is Peace, Love, Liberty Radio.
Why do they hate us? Is libertarianism compatible with Islam? Davi Barker answers these questions and more in Voluntary Islam and Other Essays. He advances the voluntarist cause with analysis of the confluence of values between Islam and libertarianism, as well as contemporary movements from the Tea Party to the Arab Spring. Voluntary Islam by Davi Barker is available from Amazon.com and all major bookstores. You can support FPP Radio by shopping online. Whether you're looking for precious metals, bitcoins, or books, you'll find that and more at shop.fppradio.com. Every purchase you make from one of my affiliates, like Namecheap, Spendabit, and Amazon at shop.fppradio.com helps fund FPP Radio. Or you can shop directly from FPP with Bitcoin in the Bitcoin store. That's shop.fppradio.com.
You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio with Darryl W. Perry. Online at fppradio.com.
Hey, welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. These are the closing moments. And before I try getting into these next couple of questions, I've got a question for you. Are you fed up with the government running every aspect of your life? What's that? You're not listening to the Lava Flow podcast yet? What's wrong with you? Go right now to thelavaflow.com/listen. The Lava Flow podcast, channeling the flow of information to the libertarian, anarcho-capitalist, voluntarist, and agorist community. Subscribe today using any podcatcher at thelavaflow.com/listen. Or just go back to sucking up to the government. The Lava Flow podcast, striking the root every episode. All right, so I've got two more questions that I pulled from the Reddit AMA that I did on Saturday. Question: were you ever in the military? No, I was not. I almost joined the Marines, but while I was going through the process of signing up, I became a conscientious objector and thus never went to boot camp, never finished the paperwork processes, and thus never served. I am proud that I never served. I'm proud that I don't have anything weighing on my conscience of ever having to shoot a gun at someone simply because they lived in the wrong country. The next question: what's the first thing you would do if elected? Well, the very first thing I would do is probably pinch myself, because it's very unlikely that anyone other than a Republican or Democrat will get elected president this year unless that person is involved in the presidential debates. Now, I assume they actually mean what's the first thing you would do after taking the oath of office, assuming I would even be allowed to take the oath of office or make any acts, because I don't think I could take the oath of office because it causes one to swear to uphold the Constitution of the United States. And, well, I actually am not fond of that document. There are certain parts of the document that I kind of like the first 5 words of the Bill of Rights: Congress shall make no law. Those words are good, but unfortunately there's a bunch of words after that, and then the courts have said, yeah, well, basically they can do whatever they want to because reasons. So, assuming I were to be able to take any actions, very first thing I would do, issue a pardon to Private Chelsea Manning, and then I would, at my earliest convenience, personally apologize for the horrendous things that had been done to Private Manning. Second thing, issue a pardon and an apology to Ross Ulbricht. Third thing, drop all charges against Edward Snowden and allow him free passage to return back to the United States if he wanted to do so. Hey, I'll be in Orlando all weekend. You can watch some of it on C-SPAN. And I'll be back next Wednesday to answer your questions. Send those AMA at fppradio.com.
The podcasts of FPP Radio are licensed under Copyright. We believe that copying is a form of flattery and do not abide by the copyright laws. Those laws serve to restrict the flow of ideas, which no one can really own. Copying is an act of love. Love is not subject to law. If you enjoy the show, consider joining the Fans program and get perks like ad-free versions of Peace, Love, Liberty Radio and FPP Radio News. To learn more or to join the Fans program, visit fans.fppradio.com.